Hello everyone, we are the Group 1 and we are going to present to you the theories from the behavioral sciences.
Nursing is an applied science that borrows theories from various disciplines. So, what is nursing as an applied science? So, it says here that nursing holds a unique position within the world of healthcare as an applied science. While in basic sciences, it strives to generate abstract knowledge, where nursing follows a distinctive approach. This also integrates scientific knowledge from various disciplines into the practical aspects of patient care. In essence, nursing functions as a vital bridge connecting scientific theories with the complexities of real-world healthcare. So when you say vital bridge connecting complexities like that, consider nursing to be the vital link between theoretical knowledge and its practical implementation in healthcare. This serves as a translator, ensuring that scientific principles and concepts are translated into tangible tools in the hands of healthcare providers. Moving on to the utilization of multidisciplinary tools. This is where the nurses rely on a wide range of theories and concepts from a variety of fields, such as biology, psychology, sociology, and others. This multidisciplinary approach provides them with a varied toolkit for especially dealing with the complex and ever-changing issues posed by the dynamic healthcare industry. This multidisciplinary approach allows nurses to provide evidence-based care, provide better and deliver evidence-based treatment when information from several areas is combined. This implies that their judgments, actions are founded on scientific research and proven procedures. It ensures the patients that they receive the best possible care based on the most recent advancements in healthcare. Nursing's multidisciplinary approach allows healthcare workers to constantly adapt to patients' shifting demands and the ever-changing healthcare environment. This adaptability is essential to nursing's effectiveness in providing great care. So the importance of nursing as an applied science plays a vital role in healthcare system. It blends scientific theories with practical patient care, providing evidence-based solutions to the complex challenges within the field. It constantly adapts to the evolving patient needs and the healthcare landscape, where nursing remains at the forefront of delivering high quality.
Next, let us proceed to psychological theories are crucial in nursing, enhancing practice and knowledge. Psychological theories are fundamental in nursing, helping nurses understand patient behavior and responses. These theories encompass diverse areas like psychodynamics, behavioral psychology, humanistic psychology, and stress adaptation. They aid in grasping how patients react to various healthcare situations and interventions. Additionally, social psychology models such as the health belief model, theory of reason action, and the theoretical model, or the TTM, assists in assessing and shaping patient choices and behavior. By applying these psychological theories, nurses improve their ability to provide tailored evidence-based care, enhancing patient outcomes.
Hi everyone, I am Psyche Tabora and I am going to discuss psychodynamic theory. Before Sigmund Freud presented his radical works describing human thoughts and behavior, people were considered to be either good or bad, normal or crazy. Freud's thinking was considered radical in the early 1900s. Even now, 21st century, many people still considered his work radical. Yet, others believe it to be antiquated. Psychodynamic theories attempt to explain the multidimensional nature of behavior and understand how an individual's personality and behavior interface. In short, psychodynamic theory ay isang pagpapaliwanag sa pag-uugali at personalidad ng isang individual. Now, I am going to introduce the works or theory of Sigmund Freud, Erik Erikson, and Harry S. Sullivan. In the stages of development, we have psychosexual, psychosocial, and interpersonal theory. Psychosexual theory of development is talking about psychological behavior and emotional development of children. And also it talks about a series of fixed stages which are oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. Oral stage. It is the first stage of development, whereas the desire is in the center of the baby's mouth, ages birth to 2 years. Having a dependency or aggression can lead to a problem with drinking, smoking, eating, and nail biting, or also called a oral fixation. Anal stage is the second stage of development, whereas 1 to 3 years erogenous zone is bowel and bladder control, or which is primarily focused on the anus. Fixations at this point in development can lead to what Freud's called anal retentive and anal expulsive. So what is anal retentive and anal expulsive? Anal retentive, it refers to overly strict and very harsh potty training as children, and may grow overly obsessed with orderliness and tidiness, or which means as a child grows older, ang anal retentive personality na ito ay madadala niya hanggang sa pagtanda, and as a result of that, she or he will hates mess so much. Anal expulsive refers to who have experienced very lax potty training, resulting a very messy, wasteful, destructive, or in short, disorganized as adults. Phallic stage is the third stage of development where child becomes a rival for the affection of opposite sex parents. At this stage, boy may develop what Freud referred to as an Oedipus complex, and girl may develop an analogous issue known as Electra complex. Sa Oedipus complex, ang lalaki ay nagkakagusto or nagkakaroon ng pagnanasa sa kanyang nanay, which resulting of viewing his father as a competitor. Sa Electra complex naman, ang anak na babae ay unconsciously cultivates a sexual attraction towards her father. Latency stage is the fourth stage of development, spanning 6 years to puberty, where the desire is dormant or hidden during this stage. At this stage, a child or an individual struggling to have an interaction, or he can or she can express his or her feelings. Genital stage, the last phase of development where the desire reemerges after its latent period and indirected towards peers of the other sex, marking onset of mature adult sexuality. Ito sa stage na to, genital stage, kapag ang isang individual ay nag-start ng maging romantic, leading to the formation of intimate relationship. For example, a teenager or an individual starts or begins to experience sexual attraction and it begins to explore their sexuality. Psychosocial developmental theory or yung Erik Erikson's theory, which describes 8 stages of a person's life and that are formed by social influences that interact with the physical and psychological maturing organism. Psychosocial developmental theory ay tumutukoy sa pagbabago ng isang personality ng isang tao at kung paano nila natututunan yung mga social skills mula infancy through adulthood. In psychosocial developmental theory, we have 8 stages of person's life. Number 1 is the trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and lastly, the integrity versus the despair. In trust versus mistrust, the stage that the child learns to believe and not to believe. Trust is when you are believing in something or to someone, while mistrust refers to the lack of trust or being unsure to someone or something. In autonomy versus shame and doubt, the stage of psychosocial where toddlers learn to explore things and at the same time feel shame and doubt that may lead to lack of independence and confidence. In initiative versus guilt, the stage of psychosocial where a child initiates something but they will receive a criticism. Industry versus inferiority means where a child is encouraged to attempt and explore, whereas inferiority is when a child is discouraged from developing their skill. Identity versus identity confusion or role confusion. Identity is defining who you are, what is your value, and your direction in life, while role confusion or identity confusion defines lack of direction and self-definition. Intimacy versus isolation. It contemplates romantic relationship and friendship, but there will come a time it can cause a lifelong loneliness. In generativity versus stagnation, the stage that an individual will begin to reflect on their life experiences and accomplishments, but still they are struggling or they feel lack of progress. In integrity versus despair, integrity is a stage in Erikson's theory that individual wants to view their life experiences as meaningful and sensing a success, while despair is a stage of individual who feel hopelessness and regret. In interpersonal theory, Sullivan's development theory based on the premise that an individual cannot exist apart from their relationships with other people. Interpersonal refers to being interacted or sharing thoughts and ideas with people. So, ang sabi dito, an individual cannot exist apart from their relationship with other people. Parang no man is an island. We are all interconnected. The sequence of interpersonal events to which a person is exposed from infancy to adulthood or late adolescence. We have the 6 stages of interpersonal, which are infancy, childhood, juvenile, pre-adolescence, early adolescence, late adolescence, or adulthood. Infancy stage is the stage of a child's life where an infant learns to explore and learning language. Childhood. This is the stage of interpersonal where a toddler experiences the development of their brain. Juvenile stage is the stage of growth and development. Pre-adolescent stage is the stage of interpersonal that develops the intimacy versus isolation. Early adolescence or middle adulthood is a stage of interpersonal that continuing to develop physically, cognitively, and emotionally. Late adolescence or adulthood, it is the stage of development where late adolescents have their reflection in life.
So next, we are going to tackle about psychoanalytic theory of Freud. According to Freudian theory, behavior is nearly always the product of an interaction among the three major systems of the personality: ID, ego, superego. Even though each of these systems has its own function, properties, and components, they interact so closely that it is difficult to distinguish their effects on behavior. Behavior is generally an interaction among these three systems. Rarely does one system operate to the exclusion of the other two. ID is the general system of the personality, and it's the matrix in which the ego and superego differentiate. The ID is unable to tolerate an increase in energy, which is experienced as an uncomfortable state of tension. This increased tension can be perceived either internally or externally. The IDs discharge the tension to return the body to a state of equilibrium. This tension release is known as the pleasure principle. Freud explained that the man's personality is driven by pleasure principles. This means that the nature of ID is to satisfy man's desire without thinking much of the situation. The second is ego. Ego distinguishes between things in mind and things in the external world. The ego is to follow the reality principle with the aim of preventing tension until an appropriate object is found to satisfy the need. The ego has control over all cognitive and intellectual functions and is considered to be executive of the personality because it controls behaviors. It does this by mediating the conflicting demands of the ID, superego, and external environment. The ego will give a more socially accepted means of getting person without getting the hurt job of the ego to the desires and wants of other feelings. And lastly, superego. The main function of superego are to inhibit the impulses of the ID, encourage the ego to substitute moralistic goals, strive for perfection. The focus of superego is moral issues. What is the right and what is the wrong? Freud based this theory on the scientific view of the late 19th century with regarded the human body as energy system. Freud believed that this aspect of man begins to manifest as a child turned 5. This is the last composed of personality which holds our moral judgment or concept of right and wrong that are believed to acquired from the family of the environment. 4 characteristics of instinct: source, aims, object, and impetus. And lastly, the impetus of an instinct is the force or strength. The environment plays 2 roles with regard to instinct. It either satisfies or threatens the development of the person. The individual response with increased tension is known as anxiety. The function of anxiety is to warn the person of impending danger. As a result of increased tension or anxiety, of an individual is forced to learn new methods of reducing the tension. These new methods are called defense mechanism. All defense mechanisms have two characteristics in common. Number one, they deny, falsify, or distort reality. Number two, they operate unconsciously so that person is not aware of what is taking place. Freud was the one of the first theorists to emphasize the development aspects of personality. He believed that the personality was developed within the first 5 years of life. Application to nursing. The relevance of Freudian's concept in nursing, particularly the ID, ego, and superego components of the self, is emphasized to understand patient's behavior and alleviate anxiety. A case study illustrates the maladaptive use of defense mechanism like denial in substance abuse. Additionally, there is broader application of psychoanalytic theory in various nursing contexts, from managing psychiatric patients to addressing issues such as denial in adolescent pregnancy and fecal incontinence.
Developmental or ego developmental theory by Erikson. Erikson's psychosocial developmental theory emerged as an expansion of Freud's concept of ego. In Erikson's theory, specific stages of a person's life from birth to death are formed by social influences that interact with the physical or psychological maturing organism. Erikson described this as a mutual fit of individual and environment. Also, he is the only developmental theorist who extends development through adulthood. The other theories stop with adolescence. Erikson's theory lists 8 stages of development. The first 4 stages occur in infancy and childhood. The 5th stage occurs in adolescence, and the last 3 stages occur during the adult years. In his work, Erikson emphasized the adolescent stage, that time in an individual's life when the person makes the transition from a child to an adult. And he determined that this transitional period has the greatest influence on the adult personality. Erikson believed that each stage of development builds on the next, thus contributing to the formation of the total person. Also, despite the fact that Erikson gave a chronologic timetable, it is not strict because he believed that each person has their own timetable for development. Erikson further developed the concept of ego to incorporate qualities that expanded the Freudian iteration. He believed that the ego is the most powerful of the 3 parts of the personality, which is the ID, ego, and the superego, and described the ego as being robust and resilient. According to Erikson, the ego uses a combination of inner readiness and outer opportunities, with a sense of vigor and joy, to find creative solutions at each stage of development. This concentration of the potential strength of the ego empowers people to deal effectively with their problems. Application to nursing. Developmental theory is a foundational element in some nursing theories, and it is important in nursing practice. For example, an essential part of the assessment process is to determine age appropriateness or development stage or status. Although developmental issues are generally thought to be associated only with pediatrics. This is not necessarily the case. By assessing the developmental stage of the adult and older adult, data can be collected about interpersonal skills and behaviors because behavioral manifestations are clues to issues that need to be addressed in the client care. Furthermore, individual responsibility and the capacity to improve one's functioning are issues to be addressed by nurses. Erickson's theory identified the degree of mastery with regard to a person's chronologic age. This mastery is known as ego strength. Jean-Claude believed that promoting assessment from the perspective of ego strengths instead of ego deficits is a valuable skill for nurses, who then can use the data for assessment and treatment outcomes. Besides, using ego strengths for assessment and interventions, the nurse can also use them to empower the client to take control of their life and to deal effectively with their problems. Developmental theory is used not only in psychiatric nursing but also in other specialty areas of nursing, and it is integral to holistic nursing practice, according to Reed 1998. Nursing researchers and scholars commonly employ developmental theory in research studies or in describing practice guidelines for various groups. For example, Tremaine 2017 used developmental theory as one component of an outline to promote improved observation of the interactions among hospitalized pediatric patients and their families, and nurses have commonly used developmental theory to improve nursing care among older adults. For example, Gibling 2011 discussed the importance of nurses supporting older adults in successful aging, and Allman and Ligon 2012 used a model based on Erickson's generative process to research the developmental issue of generativity versus stagnation in older adults who shared their life stories. These examples demonstrate that developmental theory is used throughout the life of continuum and is used in pediatric, psychiatric, geriatric, and medical surgical nursing.
Interpersonal Theory by Sullivan. Harry Stack Sullivan based his developmental theory on the premise that an individual does not and cannot exist apart from their relations with other people. Sullivan stated that from the first day of life, a baby is dependent on interpersonal situations and that this dependence continues throughout the person's life. Even if the person from society withdraws, the person still carries the memories of interpersonal relationships, which continues to influence behavior and thinking. He also stated that it is a relatively enduring pattern of recurrent interpersonal relationships which characterize a human life. To explain this, the term dynamism must be understood. Dynamism, as defined by Sullivan, is the relatively enduring pattern of energy transformation which recurrently characterizes the organism in its duration as a living organism. All individuals' dynamism characterize interpersonal relationships, and although all people have the same dynamisms, and most dynamisms satisfy the basic needs of the individual. An important dynamism develop a result of anxiety, which is known as the dynamism of self or the self system. Anxiety is a product of interpersonal relationships, and many of people in this generation is experiencing anxiety, and it may produce a threat to the security of the self. Personification is a combination of feelings, attitude, and conception that grow out of experience with need satisfaction and anxiety. Personal experience as rewarding, it is known as the good me, and the interpersonal experiences are anxiety arousing, and it is known as the bad me. A synonym for personification is self-concepts. Thus, the good me personification is a high self-concept, and the bad me personification is a low concept, self-concept. According to Sullivan, the two main sources of anxiety are the tensions that arise from the needs of the organs of the organisms and tensions that result from anxiety. Sullivan viewed the individual as an energy or tension system when has a goal of reducing anxiety. Sullivan believed that tensions can be regarded as needs for particular energy transformations that will dissipate the tension of awareness with an accompanying change of mental state, a change of awareness. When you're having anxiety, you are experiencing tensions that results from real or imagined threats to one's security. There are high levels of anxiety, which produce a reduction of efficacy of satisfying needs, disturbance of interpersonal relationship, and confusion of thinking. Sullivan also developed a threefold classification system of cognitions which are podotaxic, parataxic, and syntaxic. Peplau built her nursing theory, Interpersonal Relations in Nursing, on Sullivan's theory. This is the application to nursing. Interpersonal Theory of Psychiatry, from Sullivan's concept of degree of anxiety. Peplau developed the 4 levels of anxiety, which are mild, moderate, severe, and panic levels. That 4 levels are the standard nurses use in assisting anxiety, because Peplau believed that nurses play an important role in helping clients reducing their anxiety. Similarly, Orlando based her nursing theory on Peplau's theory and Sullivan's theory. A major focus of Orlando's theory is client participation, which correlates with both Sullivan's and Peplau's concepts of participants-observer. Thus, it is clear that Sullivan's theory has been important to nursing. And for the next slide, please, and to the next reporter, Pia Balolong.
Behavioral and cognitive behavioral theories. Understanding how personality develops can provide insight into who someone is and their background, while also increasing our understanding of what's behind our personality traits and characteristics. The psychodynamic theories grew from the belief that, number 1, personality is based on how the person develops. Number 2, development stops at a certain age. Number 3, behaviors associated with development cannot be changed. Most personality development occurs in childhood, stabilizing by the end of adolescence. Based on this belief, a human personality will start developing at a very young age, and the development stops at a certain age. In other words, person's destiny is set at an early age. Finding this theory is problematic. The behavioral theories postulated that personality consists of learned behaviors. Behavioral studies focus on human actions without much attention to the internal thinking process. Based on this theory, personality is synonymous with behavior. And if the behavior is changed, the personality is changed. When the complexity of behaviors could not be accounted for by strictly behavioral explanations, a new component was added, a component of cognitions or thought processes. So what is the components of cognitions or thought processes? Based on my research, the components of cognition including perception, attention, memory, language, problem solving, and decision making work together to help us acquire knowledge and understanding. By understanding how these components work, we can better understand our own mental processes and improve our cognitive abilities. The cognitive approach is an outgrowth of behavioral and psychodynamic theories and attempts to link thought processes with behaviors. Cognitive behavioral theory then focuses on thinking and behaving rather than on feelings. Operant conditioning by Skinner. Like Freud, Skinner believed that all behavior is determined. But the two have different theories regarding the origin of behavior. Also, Skinner followed the ideologies of Pavlov and Watson, the two early behaviorists. He expanded the notion of stimulus response behavioral approaches and of learning to include the concept of reinforcement. The Pavlovian theory, basically a biologic theory, states that stimulus elicits a response. Skinner took this theoretical principle further and applied to the psychological sciences. Skinner held that it is possible to predict and control the behaviors of others through a contingency of human reinforcers. And Skinner also expanded that on Pavlovian thinking by adding motivation and reinforcement to the principle of learning. According to Skinner, there are two types of reinforcers, primary and secondary. Primary reinforcers are important to survival. For example, food, water, and sex. And secondary reinforcers are condition reinforcers. For example, money, material, goods, and praise. Behaviors are generally multidimensional, and complex behaviors need to be broken down into smaller steps. This process facilitates the gradual reinforcement of smaller steps necessary to achieve a specific behavior.
Good day, everyone. I'm going to tackle the cognitive theory about Aaron Beck. Aaron Beck based his cognitive theory on the work he did with depression persons. He posited that biased cognition are faulty and he labeled this thought as cognitive distortion. When cognition are distortion and individuals incorrectly interprets life events jump to inaccurate conclusions, they judge themselves too harshly. This distorted cognition create a false basis for beliefs, particularly regarding the self, and influence one's basic attitude about the self. Thought distortions are the catalyst for how an individual perceives events in their life and may keep the individuals from reaching a desired goals. There is a process of changing cognitive distortion is called cognitive restructuring. So what is cognitive restructuring? Cognitive restructuring ay isang pamamaraan na matagumpay na ginagamit upang matulungan ang mga tao na baguhin ang paraan ng kanilang pag-iisip. Kapag ginamit para sa pamamahala ng stress, ang layunin ay upang palitan ng mga kaisipang gumagawa ng stress ng mas balanseng mga pag-iisip na hindi gumagawa ng stress. So, Beck believed that they are influenced by atomic thinking schema that originate in unconscious mind. Ang atomic thinking schema ay mga tema na nabuo sa pagkabata o pinatibay sa buong buhay. Beck stated that an individual's expression illness through thoughts and attitude. In other words, thoughts influence emotions and behavior is controlled by thoughts. If thoughts are distorted, the illness occur or treat the illness, the cognitive distortion must be changed. So next is the rational theories by Albert Ellis. Albert Ellis will describe rational emotive theories which focus on the interconnected between thoughts, feelings, and action. It suggests that individuals can think rational or irrational, leading to dysfunctional beliefs and self-defeating behaviors. Ellis argues that individuals can learn these behaviors and change them by rationalizing their thoughts and action. Ellis stated that the individuals learn this self-defeating behavior and the individuals are capable of understanding their limitations. Ellis further posited that if behavior are learned, they can be unlearned. A person can change belief by changing thoughts and thinking rational. If this occur, then the behavior is changed.
Application of behavioral and cognitive behavioral theories to nursing. The behavioral approach is a concrete method of monitoring or managing behavior, and this approach often used by nurses with children or adolescents and people with chronic illness because it is often successful in changing targeted behaviors. By combining behavioral theory with cognitive theory, the nurse can help alter behaviors by encouraging the individual to change irrational beliefs through problem solving. When a person who is ill may express negative thoughts or negative feelings, such as feelings of worthlessness, anger, or self-blame, and these are examples of irrational belief. Projection is an unconscious process in which the individual can ascribe undesirable thoughts, impulses, ideas, or feelings to another person in order to externalize what the individual feels are unacceptable attributes or traits. We can't really avoid self-blame, but there are people sometimes that blames others from their own problems to get their satisfaction that they want to themselves. And these people particularly are those people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol. Using a cognitive approach, the nurse teaches the person to take responsibility to their own action. In nursing, cognitive behavioral therapies are widely employed in patient care.
Humanistic theory developed in a response to the psychoanalytic. So again, what is psychoanalytic? An interaction among the three major systems of personality: ID or your instinct, ego the reality, and superego the morality. It says in the theory that humanistic theory is developed because of the response of psychoanalytic thought that a person's destiny was determined early in life. Proponent of humanistic psychology believed that psychoanalytic theory explicitly exclude human potential. In other words, there was no hope for a person. Humanistic theories emphasize a person's capacity for self-actualization. Sinasabi dito na ang humanistic theory ay ini-emphasize ng isang tao ang kanyang kapasidad para sa totoong siya or yung kung ano ba talaga siya. Thus, they present a relatively hopeful and optimistic perspective about humans. Humanists believe that the person contains within themselves the potential for healthy and creative growth. The theories of Maslow and Rogers are discussed in the following sections on humanistic theories. Human needs theory. Maslow. Abraham Maslow, known as the father of humanistic psychology, naniniwala siya na ang psychology is thinking pessimistic o tinitignan niya agad yung hindi magandang mangyayari, negative at limited conception of human. He charged the discipline para suriin ang mga kalakasan ng tao at para bigyan din ang kabutihang tao sa halip na kahinaan ng mga tao. And he also proposed that human science should explore individual who realize their full potential at naniniwala rin siya na ang inner core ng isang tao ay ang kanyang sarili, which is unique individual who possess both characteristics similar to others and characteristic uniquely distinct to the person. Overview. Motivation is the key to Maslow's theory dahil he assumed that instead of being passive, an individual is an active participation who strive for self-actualization. Maslow's theory is basically a hierarchy of dynamic processes that are critical for development and growth of the total person. There are 6 incremental stages of Maslow's theory. Number 1. Physiological needs. These are biological requirements for human survival. Example, air, food, drink, shelter, clothing, warmth, sleep, and etc. Number 2. Safety needs. Examples are personal security, financial security, and health and well-being. Number 3. Belonging and love needs. Example, friendship, intimacy, trust, acceptance, receiving and give affection and love. Number 4. Self-esteem needs. Example, confidence, strength, self-belief, personal and social acceptance, and respect from others. Number 5. Self-actualization needs. Example, personal and creative growth, which are achieved through the fulfillment of our full potential. And the last, the self-transcendence needs. Bring the individual what he termed peak experience, in which that transcend their own personal concerns and see from a higher perspective or in other definition, ito ang pinakamaganda at pinakamasaya sa'yo. And ang gustong makuha ni Maslow is yung pang 6 na needs, which is the self-transcend needs. In Maslow's scheme, needs are divided into D motives and B motives. D motives are deficiency needs. This means that these needs are basic and have the greatest strength because they are essential to human survival. D motives needs must be satisfied for a person to turn their attention to the satisfaction of the higher level needs. These higher level needs are called B motives. Need and include self-esteem and self-actualization, such as our needs are a reflection of growth potential. Example of D motives are physiological safety, love, and belongings and esteem, while the B motives includes self-esteem and self-actualization. Until basic deficiency needs are met, the individual does not pursue personal growth needs to develop their fullest potential as a human being. Maslow postulated an optimistic assessment by focusing on the individual's strength instead of personal deficits. According to Maslow, when a person strives for a personal growth, it leads the person to the fullest potential. In other words, it is the person's at their best. This means that the person develops a problem-solving approach to life, identifies with humankind, and transcends the environment. The person is able to look realistically at life and make rational decisions. This brings about inner peace. When a person accomplishes this, Maslow refers to the person as being self-actualized, characteristic of a self-actualization person. This philosophical perspective helps a person get in touch with who they are and what they can be. Application for nursing. Maslow theory can be applied to nursing practice in 3 ways. Number 1, it allows the nurses to emphasize the person's strength instead of focusing on individuals' deficits. Number 2, it focuses on human potential, thus giving the person hope. And same lang sila ng gustong sabihin ni number 1, kasi just focus on the person's strength while number 2 is human potential. Number 3, it provides a blueprint for prioritizing client care according to hierarchy of needs. Nagbibigay ito ng magandang plano para sa pagbibigay ng magandang pangalaga sa ating mga pasyente. The box 14:1. Characteristic of a self-actualized person. Realistic orientation, spontaneity, acceptance of self-acceptance of others, close relationship with others, autonomous thinking, appreciation of life, reactivity to others, consideration of others, respect for others. By focusing on person's strength, the nurse empowers the individual. In the case study, when Tracy began planning Alan's care, she followed Maslow's hierarchy by giving priority to the D needs. She helped him withdraw safety from the addictive substance and treated active symptoms of hepatitis C. She knew that his physical needs must be met before she could address the B needs. Research has been done in humanistic psychology largely using Maslow's theory. One research study, for example, focused on identifying the needs of hemodialysis patients in order to improve quality of life. Another studied the development and implementation of full risk assessment for hospitalized patients. And a third used Maslow's theory to explain the needs to provide better care of the end of life. Additionally, Liu et al. 2016 used Maslow's theory to help define the concept of job satisfaction in nursing, and King et al. 2020 also used Maslow's hierarchy to describe the factors associated with employee engagement and absenteeism.
Person-centered theory. When we say person-centered theory, an approach to human nature and development that is considered to be the most strength-oriented and optimistic than any other theory. Rogers developed a person-centered model of psychotherapy that emphasized the uniqueness of the individuals. There are two constructs fundamental to Rogers' theory. The one is organism and the self, and the two is organism and the locus of all experience. We have the several components. The first component is that an individual frame of reference can only be known by the person. The second component is that person behavior depends on the phenomenal field and not dependent on stimulating condition. The third component of phenomenal field is the made up of conscious and unconscious experience. The basic significance of the structural concept organism and self is directly related to this. These terms represent the acceptance and non-acceptance of the organism with self. Congruence is when the self-concept and the organism experience without threat or anxiety, and incongruence between self and organism make an individual feel threat and anxious, that causing defensiveness and constructed and thinking. According to Rogers, 1951, behavior is basically the goal-oriented attempt of the organism to satisfy its needs. Experience behavior occur for the organism and maintain the enhance itself. Rogers believed that individuals has to learn needs, positive regards, and self-regard. Rogers states if an individual should experience the unconditional positive regard, then no conditions of work will develop.
So, good afternoon, sir. I'm going to discuss about the stress theory. So, stress theory. Stress, adaptation, and coping are all natural parts of life. So, yung stress is normal na siya sa ating pamumuhay, and then kasama yan sa mga araw-araw na ginagawa natin. Lahat ng pangyari sa ating buhay, normal na siya sa part natin. So, stress is inevitable to everyone's life, and we must deal with stress by adapting through coping. Stress theories provide nursing with a framework to understand effects, how individual responds to stress. So, ang ginagawa ng stress theories ay nagpo-provide siya ng information sa mga nursing or sa atin para mas maintindihan natin ang epekto nito sa tao. The ability to successfully adapt
to stress leads to equilibrium, while the inability to adapt successfully leads to disequilibrium in physiological and psychological disorder. So, General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS. Hans Selye, a medical doctor and researcher, came up with a theory of GAS. During an experiment with lab rats, he observed a series of physiological changes in the rats after they were exposed to stressful events. So, Hans Selye, isa siyang researcher, siya yung gumawa ng GAS, which is General Adaptation Syndrome. Nag-experiment din siya sa mga lab rats kung paano sila magre-react or magre-respond sa isang stressful event. With additional research, Selye concluded that these changes were not an isolated cases, but rather the typical response to stress. Selye identified these stages as alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. So there are 3 stages. These are alarm reaction stage, resistance stage, and exhaustion stage. So alarm reaction stage. The alarm reaction stage refers to the initial symptoms the body experiences when under stress. You may be familiar with the fight or flight response, which is physiological responses to stress. So example ng alarm reaction stage is yung panginginig ng kamay, tapos yung parang mararamdamang butterfly sa tiyan, parang kinakabahan ka, parang ganun. So, next is resistance stage. Resistance stage. After the initial shock of stressful event and having a fight or flight response, the body begins to repair itself. It releases a lower amount of cortisol, and your heart rate and blood pressure begin to normalize. So, ditong part na yun, nanonormalize na siya, parang nagre-recover na yung body natin. Pero, andun pa rin yung part na yung part na alertness and awareness. So, the last stage, exhaustion stage. This stage is the result of prolonged or chronic stress. So, tumagal na yung stress dito sa katawan mo. Struggling with stress for long periods can drain your physical, emotional, and mental resources. So, nakaka-drain lahat yan, guys. Nakakapagod, nakaka-stress sa utak, lahat-lahat. Example na exhaustion stage is pag nag-exam ka, tapos natapos na exam mo, tapos parang nag-aalala ka pa rin kung may makukuha ka ba, kung makakapasa ka ba, parang ganon. And after that, na pagiging anxious mo, there comes the depression. So, then papasok na yung depressed. So, madidrain ka talaga. So, next is stress coping and adaptation theory by Lazarus. So, Lazarus theory focuses on how individuals cope with stressful situations, focusing on psychological responses rather than physiological responses. So, yung theory naman ni Lazarus is nagfo-focus siya sa mga pagharap sa mga stressful situations. Nagfo-focus siya sa psychological, which is yung pag-iisip, not in physiological responses. So, coping is a process characterized by dynamics and changes, influenced by continuous appraisals and reappraisals of the person-environment relationship. Stress is more complex than just stimulus and response, and coping is a result of how a person perceives the threat. So, hindi lang siya ganun kasimple ang stress. Nandyan pa yung what do you call this? Nandyan pa yung pagiging aware mo. Pagiging aware sa darating na threat sa'yo. Magiging aware ka. When one area is affected, all 3 are affected, such as person's illness. So, example niyan is pag may sakit ka, syempre may sakit ka is nanghihina ka. Then, papasok ka ng work or papasok ka ng school, gagawa ng trabaho, school works. Tapos magtataka ka, bakit pangit yung nagawa mo? Syempre, matamlay ka nga may sakit ka nga eh. So, ang magiging effect nun sa pag-iisip mo, iniisip mo na pangit yung ginawa mo, mali yung ginawa mo. So, yun na, papasok na yung negative self-concept. So, next is application of stress theories to nursing. Rice adaptation model and human system model are based on stress and adaptation. So, nakabase yung mga model nila sa mga stress, ganun. So, aiming to promote adaptive responses through coping mechanisms. So, ang main goal nila is to promote adaptive responses through coping mechanisms, which is yung pagharap natin sa problema. These theories are crucial in nursing practice as they help assess the effects of stress on individuals and their coping processes. So, crucial to, itong theory na to. Kasi, tinutulungan nila tayo sa malaman ang effect ng stress at kung paano natin naharapin ito. So, the nurse can help with problem solving or cognitive restructuring to facilitating effective coping adaptation. So, cognitive restructuring, isa yung technique na para maiba or mabago ang pag-iisip ng client para kahit pa paano is mabawasan ng onting stress. That is cognitive restructuring.
Social psychology. Health professionals use various models to understand behavior change, which is a complex process and influenced by social, psychological, and environmental factors. To achieve change, the benefits must be perceived as beneficial. Education is crucial, but information alone is not enough. Social psychology predicts health behavior and is widely used in health promoting activities. Three models address behavior change: the human brain model, the theory of reasoned actions, and the theory of stages of change. Behavior change in health involves complex processes influenced by various factors. Let's delve deeper into the mentioned models. First is the human brain model. This model suggests that individuals are more likely to change their behavior if they believe they are susceptible to a health problem, understand the severity of the issue, perceive the benefits of taking actions, and believe that the benefits outweigh the cost of barriers. Second is the theory of reasoned action. This model emphasizes the role of individual attitudes and subjective norms in predicting behavioral intentions. Attitude toward a behavior and perceived social pressure to perform or not perform the behavior influence an individual intention to act, which in turn affects actual behavior. And lastly, the theory of stage of change. This model, also known as the trans-theoretical model, posits the behavior change occurs in distinct stages: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. People move through these stages gradually, and interventions should be tailored to the specific stage an individual is in. In practical terms, health professionals apply this model to design interventions that address individual beliefs, attitudes, and readiness for change. Education plays a crucial role, but it's often combined with strategies to enhance motivation, reduce barriers, and provide ongoing support. Social psychology principles, such as the influence of social networks and norms, are integrated into these models to create more effective health-promoting activities. The health belief model was developed in the 1950s by social psychologists for the U.S. Public Health Service to predict health behaviors based on individual attitudes and beliefs. The HBM explained health behavior through constructs such as perceived susceptibility, perceived severity, perceived benefits, perceived barriers, and cues to actions. These concepts account for people's readiness to act and stimulate other behaviors. In 1988, Rosenstock added self-efficacy, a concept that helps the HBM better fit the challenge of changing habitual unhealthy behaviors like smoking, overeating, and sedentary. The health belief model developed in the 1950s is a behavioral science framework aimed at predicting and understanding health behaviors, rooted in the idea that individuals are driven by their attitudes and beliefs. The model identifies key constructs. Firstly, perceived susceptibility involves one's belief about the likelihood of experience of health issue. Secondly, perceived severity considers an individual's perceptions of the seriousness and consequences of the condition. Thirdly, perceived benefits involve the belief in the effectiveness of recommended actions to reduce risk or impact. Perceived barriers encompass the tangible and psychological costs associated with taking advised actions. In summary, the HBM posits that individuals are more likely to adopt health-promoting behaviors if they perceive susceptibility,
severity, benefits, and few barriers, while also receiving cues to actions and possessing confidence in their ability to enact change.
Next is the health belief model figure 14.1. In the individual perception, we have the perceived susceptibility disease, in which it refers to an individual's perception of how likely they are to contract or be affected by a disease. If someone believes they are highly susceptible, it can influence their behavior. We also have the perceived seriousness or severity of disease. This is about how seriously an individual perceives the consequences of contracting disease. If someone believes it's a severe illness, they are more likely to take preventive action. Next is the modifying factors. These factors can influence an individual's perceptions of susceptibility and severity and can include demographic variables such as age, sex, race, and etc. It also includes socio-psychological variables such as personality, social class, peer pressure, and etc. And lastly, it includes structural variables such as knowledge about the disease, prior contact with the disease, and etc. Next is the perceived threat of disease. This is the combination of perceived susceptibility and perceived seriousness. If someone perceives themselves as highly susceptible and the disease as severe, their perceived threat is high, motivating them to take preventive action. Next is cues to action. These are external triggers or influences that prompt individuals to take action. They can include mass media, campaigns, advice from others, reminders from healthcare professionals, or experiencing the illness of a family member or friend. Likelihood of action. This is the likelihood that an individual will take the recommended preventive health action. It is influenced by perceived benefits of preventive action. If someone believes that taking preventive action will effectively reduce the risk of disease and have positive outcomes, they are more likely to act. And perceived barriers to preventive action, in which, on the other hand, if someone perceives significant obstacles such as cost, inconvenience, or discomfort, they may be less likely to take preventive action. An individual's perception of the threat of disease is a key motivator for taking preventive action. This perception is influenced by their own beliefs about susceptibility and severity, as well as external cues to action. The likelihood of taking action is further influenced by weighing the perceived benefits against the perceived barriers. This framework helps public health professionals and researchers understand and design interventions to promote healthy behaviors by addressing modifying these various factors. The theory reasoned action and its modified version, the theory of planned behavior that was developed in the late 1960s by Isaac Ashjan and Martin Fishbane, help us understand how people make decisions and behave. The theory reasoned action suggests that people act rationally based on the information they have. It aims to predict behaviors that individuals can control. The theory planned behaviors focuses on the importance of intention in guiding behavior. Intention is influenced by attitude or how someone feels about the behavior, subjective norms or what others think about the behavior, and perceived behavioral control or how easy or difficult it is to perform the behavior. Attitude is shaped by beliefs, feelings, and perceptions, helping us assess whether a behavior is viewed positively or negatively. By understanding these factors, we can predict and analyze people's behavior and attitudes towards them.
Figure 14.2, Theory of Reason Action. Kung nakikita nyo itong model na to, ito yung mga theory of reason action and theory of planned behavior.
The trans-theoretical model is a theoretical framework used in the field of psychology and help behavior change to understand how people go through the process of making positive lifestyle changes. It consists of several stages and processes. The first one is pre-contemplation. In this stage, individuals are not yet aware of the need to change their behavior. They may not recognize that there is a problem or may be resistant to change. The next is contemplation. At this stage, Individuals becomes aware of the need to change, but they may still have mixed feelings and ambivalence about taking actions. The third step is the third stage is the preparation. Individuals in the preparation stage are ready to make a change and are planning to do so within the next month. They are actively getting ready to take action. The next is the action. In this stage, individuals have taken measurable steps to modify their behavior. Their actions are observable and they are actively working on making the desired changes. The fifth is the maintenance. After successfully implementing changes, individuals enter the maintenance stage. They work to sustain their new behaviors and prevent relapse. This stage can last from 6 months to about 5 years, depending on the specific behavior being changed. And lastly, the termination. In the termination stage, individuals have reached a point where they no longer feel tempted to return to their old behavior. They have high self-efficacy and are confident in meeting the changes. In addition to these stages, the TTM includes 10 processes of change. These processes are specific activities or strategies that people use to progress to the stages of change. They can include things like self-evaluation, self-liberation, and social liberation. Decisional balance is another important concept in the BPM. It involves weighing the pros and cons of making a behavior change. Self-efficacy refers to an individual's belief in their ability to successfully make and maintain the desired change. The TTM is useful model for understanding behavior change and designing interventions to help people move through these stages more effectively. It acknowledges that change is a process that takes time and involves various strategies and motivations.
To this stage, the TTM includes 10 processes of change. These processes are specific activity or strategies that people use to process through the stages of change. Next is application of social theories. Next is application of social psychology theories to nursing. So nurses can propose strategies and development program to make people aware of health problems. Um, so, ibig sabihin, the, the application of social psychology theories in nursing is typically relates to the area of health promotion. Nurses can propose strategies and develop programs to make people aware of health problems. They can implement this program using the social psychology theories to change unhealthy behavior to healthy behavior. So, gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, yung behavior, unhealthy behavior, yan yung mga yan yung mga risk natin na like anxiety, emotion, ganyan, yung mga nangyayari sa atin. And healthy behavior naman, ito yung mga ano natin, mga good action, mga ganon. And that is the reason that nurses must advocate health promotion for patient using multidimensional approach such as organizational change effort, policy development, economic support, and environmental change. The Health Belief Model (HBM) serves as both conceptual guide for identifying intervention opportunities and valuable framework for developing strategies in nursing research and practice, as evidenced by over 130 articles published in the last decade utilizing or testing its principle. So, for example, in classic application of HBM by Trojanowski and team 2019, so gumamit sila ng theory to develop an educational strategy to address the resurgence of measles and vaccine refusal in the United States. That is example of HBM. Yan. or HBM means the held belief model. And that's all.